situation can get out of control between Iran and Israel, and we might see a huge escalation between these two countries. Israel right now, as we speak, spending millions and billions of dollars to boost its defense system, and the reason for that is going to make you think twice. If you are thinking there's not going to be any escalation, no conflict, we're not talking about war, we're talking about conflicts, battles. If you are thinking that is not possible, that is not going to happen, then you should know this: why Israel is spending millions and billions of dollars just for this one tiny little reason. Well, now that is not anymore a tiny little reason. It is actually becoming a big reason. One of the main reasons Israel now is considering why they should be taking Iran very, very seriously. This is growing. The threat, in other words, is growing between Iran and Israel, coming from Iran this time. So what is happening right now? As we know, Israel, they have spent a lot of money to build the Iron Dome system. Now, eyeing drone threat. Okay, drone threat coming from Iran. Israel is working to boost radar air defenses. Military hopes to have full coverage of northern airspace within 2 years as part of plan to establish a nationwide air defense umbrella. But why? Why they are so eager and why they are spending so much time, energy, money to have this air defense system installed all over Israel? The reason for that is because, if you do not know, 2019 Iran, they sent some drones to who? Not Israel, to Saudi Arabia, Aramco Oil Company. That drone attack, it is so unbelievable and so spectacular that not a single country in that region, superpower like US or the country itself, Saudi Arabia, were able to detect those drones coming from Iran. It caused worldwide disruption of oil, and we have seen how it shut down so many businesses in Saudi Arabia and also around the world. US, they were baffled with this drone technology. Now, why and how Iran found it? Iran, they have shot down a US drone, UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle. Once they shot it down, Iran said, you know what, let's take a look at this because it's going to help us against Israel. Why? Because we cannot go to Israel, direct confrontation is not possible. So let's take a look at this drones, UAV, and find out what kind of technology and design they're using. So Iran came up with their own idea later on, added more value to the design, the technology they have acquired through this US drone. Now Iran is saying we are going to be using them. Now this is where things get very, very interesting. Okay, Iran is not saying that this is a technology we're going to give it to our military. Iran is saying that these technologies that we have achieved by shooting down this US drone, we are going to improvise and give it to our proxies in Syria, Iraq, and also Lebanon, Hezbollah. Iran is now have actually banning against the defense minister of Israel. He said Iran now has a location, and he knows it, at the northern front of Israel. He said this is exactly where this drone came from. And he said these are from Iran. They are using it against us, and they are going to continue using it. This is why you have seen in the past how Israel, they have spent billions of dollars to boost their defense system, what we call Iron Dome missile system. The reason for this Iron Dome is not because of Iran trying to attack Israel. That may not happen in the coming future, but the attack can still come from places like Palestine, Gaza Strip, or from Syria or Iraq, those countries. So Israel is saying enough is enough, we need to spend. So what Israel did, their energy, defense, and finance ministries, 3 ministries, they came together, okay, and they said to each other, hey, look, this is going to cost us a lot, so the only way we can cover for the cost and be able to still spend is if we can synergize our effort. So they came, all of these 3 sectors, they came together and they said, we will give you the money to the Israeli Defense Force. You build this system so that these drones, as you can see on the screen, so that these drones cannot come and attack us. This is going to be a huge problem. Why? Because with this drone technology, Iran is not only able to effectively attack Israeli targets inside Israel, but also they will be able to at the same time avoid any conflict, as long as they say, we do not take responsibility, we do not know where this is coming from, we have no idea. Nobody can actually go and say, you did it, if Iran said no, we did not, and there is no proof. But Israel, on the other hand, they know that this is coming from Iran, and there is no doubt about that, according to Israel. So the war, the escalation that we talk about in this channel, it is something that can, happen anytime. The war, I don't want to use the word war because it's very strong. Rather, I would say the word battle or conflict or some kind of escalation that would cause severe damage in this region, especially both for Iran and Israel. Both of them, they do not want this to happen. So what is happening right now? Let me tell you this. The Israel Defense Forces is working to significantly boost its air defense, particularly in northern Israel, in light of the growing threats of Iranian-made and Iranian-designed drones that have flooded into the Middle East in recent years. The Times of Israel, they have reported it. One thing you have to understand, the key word here is flooded. Iran, as we know, Israel is attacking Iranian targets in Syria, hundreds and thousands of them every month. Iran is not sitting back. They are not saying we will not do anything. They are actually sending these drones, hundreds and thousands of them, flooding the airspace of these Middle Eastern countries. Israel, they have actually shot down one of them in May, and the defense minister Benny Gantz, he said, look at this, it came to our airspace, therefore we need to be prepared for Iranian invasion of our airspace. So this is why they are spending. And within 2 years after that 2019 incident took place in Saudi Arabia, Aramco oil company, and they were able to successfully actually attack these oil companies, and actually that was done by Houthi rebels, and it came from Iranian, obviously, military. They provided this drone technology to these Houthi rebels, and they were able to attack this Saudi oil company, oil base. That happened 2 years ago, 2019. The IDF, Israeli Defense Force, intends, now this is very important, they intend to have a full permanent defense coverage in place over the airspace of northern Israel, with plans to eventually expand this to the entire country. In other words, Israel is not taking it lightly. Israel is not saying these are one-off blip, would not happen, we can feel safe, nothing is going to happen. Israel is not saying that. Instead, rather, what Israel is saying is that no, this is a real threat, and we are going to make sure that the entire country is covered with this technology, the new air defense system they're trying to build. The point here is that things are getting pretty intense for both of them, especially for IDF intending to upgrade their defense system. Air defense system is something very, very significant. This is going to be a full permanent defense coverage in place over the airspace of northern Israel, and then they will cover the whole country. Currently, the Israeli Air Force, which is tasked with defending the nation's skies, has a number of fixed air defense systems in various parts of the country. It is not, in other words, very much organized the way they wanted it to be, especially now they know the drones can come from Iran anytime, which are supplemented by mobile batteries in times of heightened tensions or when attacks are expected. So they are installing already new system, new upgrade in a situation where they might see drones coming in the sky, in like huge numbers. In addition to the threats that Israel air defenses have faced in the past, rocket and missile fire enemy aircraft, the IDF, okay, this is what they're doing, is now increasingly forced to contend with large and small unmanned aerial vehicles. Once the domain of nation states, drone technology has become increasingly available to many groups. This unmanned aerial vehicle, they are so powerful, even though they are not very expensive, but they're so powerful that they can actually evade radar. They can also sometimes be very fast. They can travel long distance, in some cases 900 kilometers, and they can come into your air defense system without you knowing anything. And this technology is available to many groups, not to a country, but many groups. And thanks to US drone that was shot down by Iranian military a few years ago, that was the beginning of it. Now they have this technology. Countering drone attacks is particularly difficult because this is going to be unmanned. There is no man involved. They are not taking any human risk. All they're doing is sending this technology, these drones, and this is why it gets very, very difficult, because you don't really see anybody. You know, the infrared radar or the thermal technology they have, sometimes they can actually sense your body heat. But in this case, because there is no human being involved, they cannot sense anything. UAVs are more difficult to detect than comparatively larger manned aircraft, and fly at lower altitudes and with less predictable flight patterns than rockets. Means you can, tweak with the drone, but you cannot do it with a fighter jet or with a rocket, that is being fired, because rocket missiles, they have a trajectory, right? The projectile where it will go and hit. But with these drones, you do not have any clue. This is why it is becoming so much more difficult for Israel, and they are so eager now to change and upgrade this technology. But this is something that is going to become a very big headache. Israeli officials point to the devastating 2019 attack by Iran on Saudi Aramco oil facilities, which was conducted with both drones and cruise missiles. Okay, so the Saudi Aramco was under attack with both drones and cruise missiles as a wake-up call to the severity of the threat posed by these weapons. Again, things can escalate anytime, things can go out of control anytime, and we are seeing it happening almost on a regular basis now. As now that we are seeing this technology becoming so available, it is going to be having a devastating effect on Israeli defense system if they are not upgrading it. So they are trying their best now to do something about it. In the 2 years since the Aramco attack, this threat has only grown as Iran has exported drones to its Houthi allies in Yemen. As we know, the Houthis, they have this technology right now. Even some other countries, for example, Yemen itself, the country itself, some other countries, even Lebanon, Hezbollah, they all have this technology. And again, who is supplying those is Iran. Things are getting, again, very, very bad. Last month, okay, this is what happened. Last month, the defense minister, his name is Benny Gantz, revealed the location of an Iranian airbase that he said was used to train Tehran's regional proxies to operate advanced drones. Okay, the key word here is advanced drones. Iran is not using a drone you have seen in the sky that kids fly. They are using advanced drones. This is a quote, one of the significant tools that Iran has developed to assist its proxies is an array of unmanned aerial vehicles that can travel thousands of kilometers, and thousands of them are spread throughout Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gantz, he said, end quote. This is what the defense minister he said. So it is coming at the very top level of Israel's government. Israel shot down one in May, as I mentioned in the beginning, which then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said had been flown into Israeli airspace by Iran from either Syria or Iraq. So these drones are able to actually now penetrate into Israel's air defense system without Israel knowing anything about it. To improve the military's ability to detect drones, the IAF is procuring additional radar arrays to be installed in northern Israel. The Times of Israel has learned. So again, Israel is now doing anything and everything possible. Israel has also made a number of improvements to the short-range Iron Drone missile system to allow it to shoot down drones as well. So the Iron Dome system, we thought it is only for the cruise missiles, but looks like this system is also designed for the drones to be able to shut them down. As well as innovation that was first put to the test during May's, in the month of May, we have seen some escalation, some conflict between Israel and Gaza, what we have seen there, right? So that was a time when they tested this Iron Dome system. So work is also underway for Israel to provide similar capabilities to the medium-range David Sling, quote-unquote, David Sling air defense system. In other words, Israel is getting very serious about it, spending money. The government is spending time, and they're making a lot of effort to stop these drones coming into Israel. This is going to be a huge pain for Israel. Why? Because if you remember that Israel, they actually had this border wall alongside Palestinian, and the reason for that was because of the people, easily coming into Israel. So now they have this border wall where Palestinians, especially from Gaza, cannot cross over. And now with these drones and whatnot, with the missile system, cruise missiles, Israel probably is gonna get really upset. They will say, you know what, we did so many things in the past, looks like we are not gonna be safe. So for the only option we have right now really is to go and fight against Iran and anybody who would come on our way to defend our land, to safeguard our territories. Let's go and get Israel out of the way. That might be a possibility, and that might be a reason why we might see that the war or conflict, I should use the word conflict, might ensue between Israel and Iran. We do not know, but things are pretty intense right now. We hope this will not escalate to the point of war, full all-out war between Iran and Israel, but you never know the future. New here, consider subscribing. I'll see you soon again. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care.